In an effort to recreate the illusion they lost with you, they scramble to recruit new sources of admiration, often people who remind them of the life they once controlled. Psychologists note that this is supply replacement in action, a desperate attempt to maintain a sense of relevance and authority. But no amount of mimicry, no borrowed energy, can replicate what you represented to them: the realness, the consistency, the autonomy they could never contain. They are performing at the peak of delusion, yet the audience, your presence, is no longer there to validate it. You observe them now and can barely suppress a grimace. Oh my God, you think. Their mask has slipped. Psychologists point out that when a narcissist loses control, their veneer of charm and superiority often disintegrates, exposing the raw, unpolished core underneath. They thought discarding you would break you, but 6 months later, you are unrecognizable to their expectations. You've healed, you've learned, you've armed yourself with knowledge and resources about narcissistic abuse. You are no longer hooverable. Their attempts to manipulate, seduce, or provoke you fall flat. This is the essence of psychological immunity, and that, experts say, is the narcissistic injury in full bloom. Psychologists define this as the profound wound inflicted when a narcissist realizes their control has evaporated. They assumed you were trapped indefinitely, emotionally and psychologically enslaved, and their power was eternal. But your freedom is a wound they cannot heal. You are free as a bird, operating outside of their sphere, untouched by their manipulations, unconcerned by their presence, irrelevant to their machinations. Your unbothered state is a mirror reflecting everything they cannot fix within themselves. Once upon a time, you gave so much of yourself that they believed your identity was erased. But now, post-abuse, psychologists describe your state as resilience in action. You remember who you are, reclaim your boundaries, and rebuild your life with deliberate intention. Every piece they tried to take from you, your confidence, your joy, your energy, you are reclaiming, often with interest. Your life is multiplying, flourishing in dimensions they cannot comprehend or touch. This is post-abuse resilience at its apex. Your mind is sharp, your spirit intact, your autonomy undeniable. Psychologists observe that survivors who reach this stage exhibit not only recovery but post-traumatic growth, a level of empowerment and insight that narcissists cannot anticipate or counter. For them, witnessing your thriving life is maddening. They've seen your lows, they know your patterns, and now, seeing you rise, unbothered, whole, and unapologetically real, it becomes an unbearable truth. That undeniable reality, your authenticity, your clarity, your freedom, is what drives them into silent, chaotic obsession. They see it. They feel it. You are a man or a woman of your word, a person grounded in purpose, destiny, and direction. Psychologists explain that narcissists experience a profound rage when their manipulations fail. Their tactics are designed to destabilize, confuse, and break you. But when they don't succeed, the narcissist suffers what experts call a narcissistic injury, the acute psychological pain of losing control over someone they deemed malleable. You could not be bent, broken, or redirected. You are still standing. You are still climbing, still pursuing, achieving, growing, glowing. And that, to a narcissist, is intolerable. This injury cuts deeper because they had counted on your surrender. Psychologists note that the narcissistic wound is exacerbated by autonomy. The more independent and purpose-driven you become, the more it highlights their powerlessness. They hate it, and their disbelief is palpable. You took the pen and began writing your own story. You became the author of your life, and suddenly, the narrative no longer revolved around them. Your peace, your confidence, your achievements, it's louder than their words, louder than their manipulations. It screams, "You don't matter. You never did. You needed me to feel powerful. Without me, you're hollow. Without me, the truth of who you are is ugly." Psychologists confirm this is exactly the truth narcissists dread. It's the authentic reality they cannot bear to see reflected back at them. They lost you, and it cost them dearly, not just ego, but status, control, and the emotional supply they depended on. In an effort to preserve self-image, they immerse themselves in other narcissists, marry their mirrors, raise narcissistic children, and perpetuate a hollow cycle. Clinical experts identify this as false self-behavior, an elaborate performance designed to mask internal collapse, protect fragile self-esteem, and convince both themselves and the world that they are thriving. Your unbothered state exposes the facade. Psychologists describe this as a mirror-shattering effect. The moment your autonomy illuminates the hollowness they've been hiding behind. Their mask slips, the deception becomes obvious, and the reality is undeniable. They were always pretending. They thrived on your light because they could not generate their own. When you cut off the supply, the illusion crumbles. Your detachment becomes the spotlight that reveals what was always hidden. They were using you. They had no power without you. Nobody truly wanted them. They had to manipulate, deceive, and control to gain your attention. They were never genuine. And you? You were the prize from the start, the target of envy, admiration, and exploitation. Detaching fully, truly, irrevocably detaching, is the psychological dagger. Experts say this produces the deepest narcissistic wound. The profound humiliation of losing someone they were accustomed to exploiting, someone who represented both validation and control. You reclaimed yourself, your energy, your boundaries, and in doing so, you stripped them of the only thing that made them feel significant. Now, they are left scrambling to prove a point to anyone who will listen, but the truth is stark. No one truly cares, and they are forced to perform the illusion of success while their interior self decays. They will spend the rest of their lives trying to convince themselves they still matter. Psychologists explain this as narcissistic self-relevance bias, an unconscious drive to prop up an ego that's collapsing under the weight of truth. They'll date anyone who'll say yes. They'll play the victim, rewrite history, and spin lies for any audience willing to listen. This isn't love, or even desire, it's survival. They are constructing a false narrative because the real story, that you walked away and never came back, threatens the very core of their identity. Psychologists emphasize that your unbothered state is their ultimate defeat. It's not just indifference, it's liberation. Narcissists thrive on your reactions, your tears, your energy. When you stop feeding them, their entire system malfunctions. They thought they could waltz in and out of your life indefinitely, but you closed the door, decisively, permanently. Experts call this a narcissistic supply cutoff, and for narcissists, it's a shock akin to withdrawal from a powerful drug. In their desperation, they rush into new relationships, even marriages, with anyone who offers a temporary fix. This is why, as psychologists note, narcissists often love-bomb someone new at lightning speed. The mask is slipping, and they need an emergency cover before the world sees their unraveling. When you became unbothered, the energy that no longer touches you, why the narcissist is shaken and secretly tormented. They see it. They feel it. You are unbothered, and that terrifies them more than anything in the world. Psychologists explain this as a seismic power shift. The moment you reclaim your autonomy, the moment you no longer respond to their manipulations, their carefully constructed illusions crumble. To them, it's like a mirror shattering. Fragments everywhere, impossible to reconstruct. The narcissist's ego, so dependent on control and validation, cannot endure the image of someone thriving without their influence. This is the core of what psychologists describe as a narcissistic mirroring response. When the person they once controlled refuses to perform for them, to submit, or to provide narcissistic supply, they obsessively compare themselves to you. Every smile, every step, every success becomes a yardstick against which they measure their own emptiness. Your detachment, your resilience, and your visible thriving provoke them because it highlights the stark contrast between your life and the hollow facade they maintain. By mastering detachment, by stepping away from their influence, you have won, and they have lost. But this is the narcissist. Unrelenting, bitter, and incapable of true acceptance. Psychologists note that narcissists cannot process genuine loss. Instead, they fabricate delusions, rewriting reality to preserve their fragile sense of self. To confront the truth, that they are empty, dependent, and unable to form authentic connections, would shatter them. Your independence and success threaten the very structure of their ego, and so they are driven to obsess, compare, and undermine from afar. As you rebuild, thrive, and live fully. They watch from the shadows, consumed by envy. Psychologists refer to this as a narcissistic injury, a festering wound that arises when the illusion of control is stripped away. Your accomplishments, freedom, and authenticity do more than highlight their failures. They confront them with the reality they have long denied. Deprived of control and the supply you once provided, they must maintain a public mask of normalcy, feigning success and contentment, while privately crumbling under the weight of your thriving. Weakness is unthinkable for them. If their vulnerability were exposed, no new source of supply would stay. So, they lie, manipulate, and craft illusions, trying to project strength and stability. But your calm, unshakable presence exposes the emptiness they cannot admit. Not to the world, not even to themselves. Psychologists emphasize that this exposure is empowering for the survivor. Witnessing the narcissist's unraveling from a place of safety reinforces the reality that freedom, self-determination, and healing are yours to keep. You are no longer their stage, no longer their puppet, no longer their source of validation. You are the one who stepped out of the illusion, reclaimed your power, and refused to perform. And in that refusal, you have done something transformative, not only for yourself, but also in demonstrating, silently yet profoundly, that narcissistic control is not invincible. Your peace, your autonomy, and your thriving are the ultimate proof that the cage they built cannot contain the human spirit when it chooses freedom. Your calm, your independence, your refusal to be dragged back into their twisted games. These are the things that haunt them. Psychologists call this the ultimate power reversal. The former victim, now healed and autonomous, becomes untouchable, while the narcissist spirals into obsession, envy, and impotent rage. Your days are filled with purpose, with productivity, with life itself. Meanwhile, they remain trapped in a mental prison of comparison and bitterness, endlessly measuring themselves against the freedom they can never reclaim. This is not just annoyance. It's a psychological wound that festers because they built their identity around controlling you, and that control is gone. You have reclaimed your life. You have reclaimed your identity. No longer tethered to someone who thrived on your dependence, you have mastered detachment, and psychologists recognize this as the post-abuse empowerment effect. It is the stage in recovery where the survivor has transformed their trauma into agency, a state of untouchable sovereignty where the abuser's attempts at influence are powerless. You have won, not through confrontation, but through the quiet, unshakable act of walking away. You are no longer waiting by the phone, no longer anxiously anticipating their manipulations or attempts to pull you back in. Psychologists describe this as one of the most profound stages of post-narcissistic healing. The victim's energy is restored, redirected, and protected. You reconnect with yourself, with people who genuinely value you, and with passions that were stifled under their influence. You are piecing together your identity, or perhaps stepping fully into the person you were before they tried to define you. For the narcissist, this is unbearable. They thrived on your confusion, your compliance, your dependency, and now all that energy, all that control, is gone. They tried tirelessly to consume your soul, but psychologists emphasize that narcissists cannot fully possess someone who awakens. You were never theirs to permanently break. That temporary thrill, that fleeting control, they now sit in the bitter aftertaste of disappointment and rage. They are enraged because you no longer perform for them, no longer bend to their whims, no longer exist as a reflection of their ego. You are autonomous, thriving, and unreadable. And that, more than anything, shatters their illusion of power. Every decision you make now, free from their manipulation, is a psychological victory. Psychologists note that reclaiming your decision-making autonomy is a crucial turning point in trauma bond recovery. The survivor becomes unbothered, resilient, and impermeable to attempts at control. Smear campaigns, rumors, whispers, lies, they bounce off you effortlessly. Your energy is no longer accessible. Your presence is no longer a lever to manipulate. For the narcissist, this is devastating. They can no longer predict you, intimidate you, or provoke you. They are faced with the reality that their old tactics fail, and they are powerless against the life you have rebuilt. When you reach this stage, psychologists argue, it is a sign of true recovery and peace. Your calm is not just absence of fear, it is presence of autonomy. Your energy is in your control. You are back in your flow, no longer a character in someone else's story, and every step you take reinforces the freedom they can never have. This is not just survival. It is triumph, an undeniable declaration that the one who got away cannot be caught again. You're walking in peace, living in peace, waking up with peace, and going to sleep with peace. Psychologists describe this as the hallmark of post-traumatic recovery. The survivor's nervous system has recalibrated, the trauma bonds weakened, and autonomy restored. And nothing drives a narcissist madder than irrelevance. The more detached and self-contained you become, the more they spiral. Their obsession with control turns inward, leaving them confused, anxious, and destabilized. Psychologists call this the narcissistic collapse, a response to losing access to the emotional and psychological supply they once exploited. Now, they fumble, stumble, and stutter. Their confidence crumbles. They became sicker, narcissistically sicker. They scrambled, not just emotionally but psychologically. Their inner dialogue turns frantic. I can't be exposed. I can't let the world know the truth. I'll lie even if it kills me. I'll lie to the grave to protect the mask, to protect the image. Psychologists recognize this as the narcissistic endgame, a point where the ugliness intensifies because the supply that once regulated their ego is gone. This is why they never truly let go. They are not holding on to you as a person, but to what you represented: validation, control, and power. This is the part they'll never admit out loud. But you already know. And now the whole world can see it, too. Psychologists say the very act of your detachment is what creates this public unraveling. Their behavior begins to speak louder than your words ever could. You thought it was over. You thought that after you cut them off, after you moved on, the story was finished. And yet, here they are, resurfacing after years, even decades. Psychologists have a name for this: hoovering. It's the narcissist resurfacing, not because they've changed, but because your detachment was so final, so cold, it left a wound they can never heal. This wasn't an ordinary breakup. It was a narcissistic cut, deep, festering, unforgettable. And here's the truth psychologists emphasize: nobody can soothe that pain for them. They are in agony because they lost you, not because they miss your love, but because they lost their supply. Every day, they craft new masks, new stories, new distractions to hide the emptiness. Experts explain that narcissism isn't simply a personality disorder. It's a profound ego problem, a corrosion of selfhood so deep it becomes, as some psychologists describe, a spiritual darkness they invite and perpetuate. They're tormented not because you're gone, but because you survived. They cannot fathom how, after everything they put you through, you are not broken beyond repair. They wanted you stranded. They wanted you shattered. And yes, psychologists acknowledge that trauma at their hands can indeed fracture a person's sense of self. But they also stress that trauma can catalyze awakening. Many survivors find clarity and purpose in the aftermath. That's what happened to you. You awakened. You transformed. You evolved into someone unrecognizable to the person they once controlled. And that is what truly haunts them. Psychologists call this post-abuse resilience, the rebirth that follows survival. They see you now, walking in purpose, living in authenticity, glowing with the freedom they swore you'd never have. And in their silent chaos, they finally understand. They didn't just lose control. They lost the best thing they ever had, and you're not coming back. They watch in disbelief as everything they did to destroy you backfires. But it doesn't break you. Instead, it awakens you. Psychologists note that this is the post-trauma empowerment effect, a phenomenon where surviving manipulation catalyzes profound self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and resilience. What was meant to weaken you became the forge in which your strength was forged. You now stand in a position they never imagined. Powerful, peaceful, and fully aware of your worth. Experts remind us that narcissists thrive on dependency. They need you to need them, to be tethered to their whims, to bend to their timeline, their rules, their control. Psychologists describe this as pathological dominance behavior, an insidious pattern where the abuser seeks to own every facet of your life. But when that control is broken, When the puppet severs the strings, the narcissist experiences more than frustration. Their sense of identity shatters. This is clinically recognized as narcissistic collapse, the moment the carefully curated mask fractures, and the hidden insecurities and self-loathing they've been hiding from erupt in full force. They realize they failed. Their plan to destroy you did not succeed, and now they are confronted with the darkness they've carried all along. Some narcissists attempt to rationalize their abuse as a badge of honor, a twisted sense of achievement. But psychologists are clear. This is not confidence, it is pathology. Their envy of your light, the authenticity, the goodness, the God-given spark within you, was always unbearable. Now, that light still shines. Your survival, your resilience, and the love others continue to show you are reminders of what they cannot control. Psychologists note that this inability to diminish your positive qualities fuels narcissistic rage, a reaction stemming from their own fragile self-concept being exposed. And the ultimate blow? Your self-love. Psychologists emphasize that self-love is a form of psychological armor. It dismantles manipulation, deflects gaslighting, and renders attempts at control impotent. Your love for yourself became their undoing. You became the worst possible target for their schemes. Resilient, self-aware, untouchable. In trying to destroy you, they only destroyed themselves. Now, they play the victim, wallowing in regret and wishing they never crossed your path. Psychologists identify this as a role reversal response, where the abuser experiences shame and powerlessness after their manipulations fail. They thought they were orchestrating your ruin, but you were not like the others. You were not the easy mark. You were unbreakable. You, on the other hand, laugh, but not out of malice. You laugh out of freedom, out of triumph. You sleep peacefully at night, finally catching up on the rest stolen by their chaos. No drama, no psychological warfare, no endless stress, just peace. Psychologists note that this is post-traumatic healing in action. When the victim reclaims autonomy, the body, mind, and spirit begin to repair, and confidence and joy return naturally. And that, ultimately, is what terrifies them. Psychologists explain this as a hallmark of narcissistic behavior. They crave chaos. They thrive on your instability, your anxiety, your confusion, because that is where they feel control. But now, that world no longer exists. You have escaped. You are no longer trapped in the web of their toxicity, manipulation, or control. You have reclaimed your life. Each day, you learn more about yourself. Each day, your power grows. Psychologists call this self-directed growth, a conscious expansion of identity, purpose, and emotional resilience following narcissistic abuse. And every step you take in this freedom is a reminder to them. You are gone, you are unshakable, and your life is yours to write. You're stepping into the full spectrum of your purpose, uncovering goals that resonate deeply, and embracing a vision for life that is entirely your own. Psychologists describe this as self-actualization post-trauma, a process in which survivors of narcissistic abuse reconnect with their authentic selves. And here's the detail that cuts deepest for them: the ultimate narcissistic wound. Their presence no longer holds power over you. Their attempts at chaos, their manipulations, their manufactured crises, they bounce off you now. You see clearly through the lies, the carefully constructed mask, and the shallow performance that once held sway over your perception. This person was never meant to walk your path, never aligned with your purpose, never a partner in your growth, never a match for the person you were destined to become. Psychologists emphasize that survivors often gain clarity through detachment, a heightened perception that enables them to distinguish between authentic support and toxic interference. That clarity, that truth-seeing ability, is the very thing that torments a narcissist. Because now, they cannot distort your reality, warp your perspective, or ensnare you in their web of control. Experts call this narcissistic injury, the profound psychological wound that occurs when a narcissist realizes someone they tried to dominate has gained autonomy and self-realization. In clinical terms, it is a collapse of their control and ego defensive strategies. And that's exactly what's happening. You are thriving, untouchable, and no longer their puppet. Psychologists note that witnessing a former victim flourish beyond their influence can trigger envy, rage, and obsessive behavior in narcissists, they cannot abide the exposure of their limitations. They are haunted by the truth you now hold, the reality of their superficiality, deceit, and hollow facade. Psychologists point out that narcissists rely on control over perception to maintain their fragile sense of self. When that control is stripped away, it threatens every illusion they've built. You see the depth of their manipulation, the fragility of their persona, the falsity of the identity they projected, and this awareness enrages them. It is an existential threat to their ego, and one they are ill-equipped to handle. Yet here's the power in your hands. You are no longer engaged in their drama. You've reclaimed your energy, your focus, and your emotional sovereignty. Psychologists call this post-abuse empowerment, a stage in which survivors redirect their attention to growth, fulfillment, and joy. Your thriving existence is a silent yet undeniable testament to your resilience. It proves they failed. They could not break you. They could not manipulate your trajectory. They could not derail your life. Now, your life belongs to you. Your peace, your purpose, your creations. That peace reflects everything they could never control, everything they could never achieve. Psychologists describe this as autonomous flourishing, the psychological state where detachment from a toxic influence allows full alignment with one's authentic self. You're not just surviving, you're thriving. You are building, creating, loving, and glowing. You are living in alignment with your true essence, not theirs. And every moment of that alignment is a victory, a profound, unshakable empowerment that narcissists can never penetrate. I want to hear from you. Truly. Take a moment and share your thoughts in the comments below. Psychologists highlight that verbalizing experiences of trauma or manipulation is a critical step in processing and integrating emotional wounds. Sharing your story helps validate your reality, reclaim your narrative, and connect with others who understand the intricate dynamics of narcissistic influence. By speaking your truth, you're participating in what experts call collective healing, a powerful method for transforming pain into empowerment. For those new here, take a moment to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and show your support by liking this video. Psychologists emphasize the importance of creating intentional spaces for growth and support. Following, engaging, and connecting with resources that prioritize education and self-care strengthens resilience, reinforces boundaries, and provides practical tools to navigate recovery. Everything you need to reach out, work with me, or engage further is in the description box below. Until next time, beautiful people, stay blessed, stay true, and keep thriving. Remember this, your clarity is your power, as psychologists explain. It allows you to see manipulation for what it is, untangle yourself from toxic influence, and reclaim your agency. Your peace is your shield, protecting your emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being. And your self-love? That is the ultimate victory, the unshakable force that ensures you are no longer anyone's pawn but the master of your own life. In an effort to recreate the illusion they lost with you, they scramble to recruit new sources of admiration. Often people